Hey guys, it's Gandiva, my Vanguard deck profiles. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe. This time we're covering DZ Set 6 for Dragon Empire Gandiva. This is the first deck profile for DZ Set 6, which was originally supposed to only have 7 deck profiles. Then Bushy said, no, let's make it 14 essentially. So let's get this started, shall we? And see what we got today. Of course, we're starting with Gandiva, which has introduced itself with a new mask, which I think a lot of people were very negative of when it first came out. And in my personal opinion, is really good. Or not really good, but the card itself is fine. So let's get this started, shall we? See what we got. First today, we have our Energy Generator. It's our Ride Deck Crest. You have Ride Deck Crest in your Ride Deck. Auto Ride Deck, when you'd ride, put this card into your Crest zone. If you win second, energy charge 3. Continues, you may have up to 10 energies. Auto begin your ride phase, energy charge 3. Then act once per turn, energy blast 7, draw a card. All around pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn, which is really great for any decks that have a lot of energy using cards. This deck is not one of those, but hey, free 3 energy is free 3 energy. And on top of the fact as well that you can end up using that extra energy you have left over in case you don't use it on other things. I mean, your main user is going to be the Mask Maker over here, but otherwise you get a free draw out of it. So all around pretty solid. You can use it to either draw or just help increase your resources, and it's just a nice card to have. It's also required, so there's that too. Then we have, of course, our starter in Scarlet Flame Recruit Barkish. Grade 0 boost, 5k shows 6k base. Auto, when applying for a second draw card. Standard starter, now spots to free draw if you go second. You can really run any card for starter in the ride deck. All of them have the exact same skill. I choose to make it Barkish because I like running the canonical ride lines, and because Barkish is obviously the canonical starter of Gandiva. There we go. Moving on, we have our Overtrigger in Dragon Deity King of Resurgence Drag Veda. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger in your deck. Remove it as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, against plus 1 for a turn. If you did your track activate, it's a disc effect, which you get to choose one Vanguards and stand it, which is all around pretty solid. It's a simple effect, but I mean, a free Vanguard stand in a deck that can have a double crit Vanguard with God knows how many numbers in the front row is pretty solid to have. If you want to run Volna for more consistent multi-attacking, you could run that too. If you want to run a Spoiler for recycling, you could also run that, but personally, I like the odds of Drag Veda, because if you do flip it, well, your opponent's staring down 2 Vanguard attacks, most likely both with double criticals, so your opponent's in for a World of Hurt. So I love having Drag Veda in the main deck, so one of him presses the Overtrigger. Then we have our normal triggers. We have 3 copies of the Draw Trigger and Flail Veil Dragon. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater at 5,000 to the shield, and it's a draw trigger, so when you check it, you get to increase your hand. I was tempted to put this up to 4 copies originally when I first made the deck because of the increased amount of grade 3s, but I was confident that 3 Flare Veils would be enough, and I don't regret my decision. Being able just to draw whenever I need to is good, and still being able to be a 10k shield is nice as well. If you want to up the draws to 4, you can. You don't need fronts because the deck already gets enough numbers as is. So 3 to 4 of draws, but personally I like the 3 of because I like to run 8 crits in the process. We have 4 copies of Conduct Spark Dragon, grade 0 boost 50k show, 5k power. You can make this any crit you want, but because this deck was technically supposed to be Eugene but better when it first came out, I chose to copy the Eugene trigger line, and since then we've been running the Eugene trigger line, hence why the heal is still Parasolas over here. But a total of 8 crit, again, Conduct Spark can be whatever you want, but I do recommend running Burning Felt in this deck as a grade 0 boost 50k show, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, at the end of the booster shove to soul, choose on units to get 2k for the turn. All around, pretty solid. It's a free soul card and gives someone 2k. There are occasions where you can run into soul problems in this deck, and being able to get more cards into drop zones so you can bind more of them easily is great. So I do recommend running Burning Fell. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it's nice for the extra soul, like I said, and again, 8 crit for pressure. And then we have 4 copies of White Light Dragon Parasolas, grade 0 boost, 50k show, 5k power. You can make this any heal you want. Again, I say I built this deck based off of the idea that it was technically supposed to be the upgrade to Eugene when it first came out, so therefore I ran the Eugene triggers, which includes Parasolas as the heal, but again, run whatever heal you want. Moving on to our grade 1s. First, we're on 3 copies of Scarlet Flame Bow Soldier Bouncing. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto back or rear guard circle. When your Vanguard with Gandiva, I keep forgetting to change them with Google Slides, is this card name attacks. If your bind zone has 3 more cards in it, bind this card face down, countercharge 1. All around, pretty good, because just by the Vanguard attacking, it doesn't matter what it's attacking into. You can attack into a Vanguard, you can attack to a rear guard. As long as it's attacking, you can bind him to countercharge 1. The only downside is that he has to proc from back row, so you can't just call him to front row and try to open up rear guard circles with him, or, try to prevent your other rear guards from being killed, which sucks. But he does end up getting you an extra bind card face down. He only requires 3, and this deck is almost guaranteed 3 on the first grade 3 turn no matter what, unless you brick hard. And by brick hard, I mean you literally only see triggers throughout that entire turn, or through the entire game up to that point. But hey, it's a free counter charge, it's easy to pull off, and it's not once per turn, so you have an entire back row of bouncing. You can go all in on the counter blast of that main phase, then the bow phase, bind all the bounces, get plus 6k to your front row via the Gandiva skill, and then get 3 free counter charge out of it. All around, very solid grade 1, love to have in the deck, easy 3 of. Then we have 3 copies of Dragon Tree Offshoot Dramblade. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto and placed on rearguard circle other than during the battle phase. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Gandiva or Griffle Gila, Soul Blast 1 to check the top 7, choose up to 1 Scarlet Flame card or up to 1 Mask of Hedron from one of them, discard it, shuffle the deck, and then look at the top card of your deck, put the top or bottom. Sorry, there's a mess up on this card's text. For some reason, the one from the fandom had the text of the one from Keter Sanctuary, so it's actually kill rearguard instead. You still send something to drop zone, but instead of looking at the top card, you kill a rearguard. So being able to pop a rearguard is great because he can trigger Gandiva's ability, not to mention the fact as well that he sends a card to drop zone, so you now have bind targets for Gandiva on top of the soul card you just soul blasted for, and worst case scenario, he sends a mask to drop zone, which you can then use to persona ride a Gandiva mask. All around, Dramblade is a very good grade 1 to have, kills a rearguard, ignore this half of the effect, it does kill a rearguard like I said, and it gets you a free card to drop zone, technically 2 free cards in the drop zone, all for just a simple cost of soul blast 1, so it's a very solid 3 of in my opinion. Then we have our 4 PGs in Sparkle Rejector Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 0 shows, K base continues Sentinel, into 4 Sentinels in deck and put on guard circle. Choose over units that cannot be hit on the battle if your hands 2 more cards in it. Choose a card from your hands, guard it, standard PG. Nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this is only one of the cards in your hand, place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard great, because that means you'd be as aggressive as you want in the early game. Spam the actually don't spam the ever living out of this one. Spam the ever living out of this one. You may think that's not often because there's only 3 copies of it. No, you will see it often. Believe it or not, every time I flip over Gandiva's ability, 9 times out of 10, I'll flip over this grade 1 specifically from it. I don't know how, I don't know why, and frankly I don't care. But either way, Spark Rejector Dragon being a nice defensive card because when your opponent eventually does counterattack you and you have very low hand cards, throw it on Spark Rejector, and if you only had one other card at the time or less than that, your opponent can no longer hit you for that battle because Spark Rejector's ability procs. All around, very solid PG to have. I like having this card in the deck. You can run, I don't know why I was going to say Twin Marble Dragon, you can run Twin Buckler Dragon, or you could run Monju. They both have the exact same skill as the PG Sparkle Rejector over here, but I just prefer running Sparkle Rejector over them because it came out closer to the time of Gandiva's release. And if you're wondering why I don't run the Blitz Order PG, there are times where you have to call a PG to win a game. And there are times where you have to call a PG anyways in a dumb situation to eventually win the game later on. If you think I'm BSing, I am not, because there was a game where I called 2 PGs at the very start of the game on grade 1 turn for an early game rush, and it is literally the reason I won the game because it domino affected the next few cards of the deck. So yeah, when I tell you that running as many PG normies as possible is a good thing, I mean it. Moving on, we have our last grade 1 in the deck, and that is 1 copy in the right deck, no copies of the main deck of Scarlet Flame Bow Soldier Acrid. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, contains Vanguard. If your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, when you ride Scarlet Flame Bow General D-Panel from the right deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand. All around pretty solid, you know, it's just a free ride if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, but if they have 2 or more rear guards, when you would ride on top of this unit, you may call it to rear guard. All around, pretty solid because you guaranteedly get a benefit out of this. You either get a free rear guard if they have 2 or more cards, so technically you're not losing a hand card when discarding because you are getting this thing on rear, which is nice, or you're just getting a free ride deck. 9 times out of 10, your opponent's going to give you the free ride deck because they honestly giving you a free 8k base might be the death of them, honestly, most of the time, especially if you're the one going first. That way that 8k can be put in the front row and then punish down their 8k Vanguard. But, you know, also in the case of they're trying to aggro you, they might choose to let you have that because if they're trying to aggro you down and you have 1 less hand card because you have to ditch it to ride, this card doesn't go to hand, meaning they can just bully you down. All around aggro though, very solid grade 1 to have. You either get a free rear guard or you get a free ride deck. It's a nice grade 1 to have in the ride deck, so 1 of here. Then we have our grade 2, 4 copies of Scarlet Flame Bow General Regent. I like how I said grade 2, implying there's only 1. No, there's 3 grade 2s, not counting the one in the right deck. 4 copies of Regent. Grade 2 and step 5k shield, 10k base. Auto and placed on rear guard circle if your vanguard's a Gandiva. CB1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, murder it, and then if you did not kill something, draw a card, choose a card from your drop zone, bind it face down. All around, pretty solid. I really love the Scarlet Flame deck. I said this when it first came out, where I like how their skills are always do a cost, kill something, but if something doesn't die, you draw a card to presumably replace the CB, and then you still get a bind to replace the bind you would have gotten for the rear guard if the rear guard had been killed thanks to Gandiva's ability. So all around, this grade 2 is great because no matter what you do, you are getting that free bind and draw, or you're getting the free bind and a rear guard kill. You're either getting a rear guard kill or you're getting a draw. All around, Regent is a very good grade 2 to have. Get you a draw and a bind if you don't kill something, and get you a rear guard and a bind if you do kill something. So yeah, 4 copies of the grade 2, nice to have it in the deck. And then we have 4 copies of Drag Rid Al-Fakar, grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rearguard when your Vanguard with Gandiva and the card name attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. CB1, bind this unit face down, check the top 5, shield to 1, grade 3 unit card from them, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle the deck. So cool, simple CB, bind this unit, check the top 5, get an extra rearguard out onto board so you get some multi-attack down. It can really be any unit, worst case scenario, you just call a trigger that has happened one time where my top 5 are all crits for some reason, so I had to call in a Caduck Spark Dragon. Did I question that? Yes, but did I have a choice if I wanted to go for lethal? No. So Alfredgar being able to get any unit out is great, and again, it also binds itself face down, so it does give you extra numbers with Gandiva. And if you get lucky and you flip Sturgana off this, that's a free 3 cards right there, because Alfredgar goes to bind zone, proccing off his skill gives you 1 rear guard from the cost, and then it gives you 1 more card from drop zone, whether it kills something or it doesn't, and therefore that gives you a total of 3 cards in bind zone to proc off Gandiva's plus 6. So around Alfredgar, very good grade 2 to have in the deck for Rev. Then we have 4 copies of a card I did not care for when it got released and only put it in here because of the mask, and then because of that Soraya run game, I now actually respect. Dragon Tree Wretch Trice Grimrod. Grade 2, Intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. It'd be fun if they released masked forms for not the side deck bosses, the what's it called, the promo bosses, so like Spinal Marquis, Hamvalid, Endegrama, etc. That would be a fun way to make those guys relevant. Anyways, auto placed on rearguard circle, energy blast 3, search after 1 mask, feature guard, reveal it, put it to hand, shuffle the deck. This is the only card that costs energy, so if you don't end up using the energy on this search skill, you're going to end up using the energy on the energy generated skill. I'm going to tell you this right now though, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to use the energy on Trice Scroll because yeah, the amount of times I've searched this mask off it is pretty good. And then act rearguard, counterblast 1, bind this unit, choose one of your rear guards without any Dragon Tree markers on it, put a Dragon Tree marker on said rear guard, then check the top 7, shield to 1 mask or Griffogila unit. There's no Griffogilas in this deck, so you're only searching for a mask card. It could be, either Mask of Hedrogum over here or specifically Gandiva, and then you add it to the hand and shuffle the deck. But when you look by this ability, if your bind zone only has 1 or less copies of this thing in it, you check all your deck instead of the top 7. All around, pretty solid. At least the first time, you're always getting just a free mask to hand, and the second time, you're just checking the top 7 for a deck then, which is still pretty solid because it also gives you a marker, and it only costs a CB, which doesn't play into, thankfully, Mask over here skill, or technically Gandiva skill over here as well. So being able to get a marker and pump up your board by a bunch of 5k on top of Gandiva's whatever the hell number is all around pretty solid to have. And the best part is that none of his abilities actually are required of you being a specific grade or having a specific name Vanguard, meaning if you just want to call this thing down on grade 2 turn, Energy Blast 3, get a Mask of Hedrogum, then because you already have access to Gandiva Mask in your hand, you just want to CB1 and bind this unit so your opponent can't get rid of it, and then put a Dragon Tree marker on your board to prepare for next turn, you can do that. So all around, Trice Grimrod, very good grade 2 to have, nice for early game rushing with the Mask Search, but also nice just for setting up the board with Dragon Tree markers, so it's an easy 4 of. Following that, we have our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the red deck, no copies in the main deck, of Scarlet Flamebow General D Panel. Grade 2 instead 5 Kashio, 10k base, auto and rotopon by unit Gandiva in the card name, choose your vanguards, and the cost of that unit's original act ability is used by CB1 for the turn. So all around, pretty solid. He essentially makes this boy free, which is fun to do because since this card can also activate this guy for free, that means on your first grade 3 turn, God forbid your opponent went first for their sake, if you rode to Gandiva, you can board nuke them, or whatever didn't die from the board nuke, Persona Ride using this into this, and then use this thing's skill. By the way, this ability was free when you used it to board nuke your opponent. Then use Mask skill to remove OG Gandiva, and then activate the board nuke skill again, and then kill whatever was remaining. All-around D panel is a very good grade 2 to have, even though it only reduces the cost by 1 CB. Making Gandiva's possible kill 3 rearguard ability free is amazing, not to mention the fact it does combo really well with Gandiva Mask on the first grade 3 turn. So 1 copy of D panel in the red deck, no copies of D panel in the main deck. Following that, we move on to our grade 3s. 4 copies of our obviously very important order that this deck literally dies without. Mask of Hedrogum, grade 3 normal order. Check the top 5, choose up to 1 card, Dragon Tree Mask, and from them, reveal, put your hand, shuffle the deck. So unlike this, which unfortunately cannot search itself and or the grade 1 Dramblid, it's at least able to search those 2. It could also, just search the deck for Gandiva Mask or a copy, well, not a copy of itself because it has to be a unit card, but then also in drop zone, you don't have to play it and then put it into drop zone. You can just straight up discard it. 9 times out of 10, I will openly draw into a Gandiva Mask, so 9 times out of 10, I'll just this for discard fodder. Act drop zone if your Vanguards are grade 3 or grade without Mask in the card name. Reveal a grade 3 with Mask in the card name from your hand. Write the reveal card for this cost of stand. If you roll, put this card to your soul. Then if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or grade and you do not Persona Ride this turn, activate Persona Ride. All around, pretty solid. Way to give your front row numbers. Giving your front row free 10k is already busted, but being able to also give them more numbers off of whatever these 2 proc off is pretty great as well. Not to mention the fact, again, it's a free top 5 search. None of this costs any CB or soul for the record. In fact, this actually gets you 2 soul, the card you're roiding from, and then also this thing itself. But then not to mention the fact that activating its ability does not count as playing in order, meaning if you send this to soul from drop zone as the first thing you do during the main phase after using Gandiva's free skill, obviously from D panel, then if you end up adding another copy to hand because maybe the card you draw from Persona Ride is Grimwald over here, then you call it to search this, you can then just play it and check top 5 for another Gandiva Mask and then prepare for the next turn. Our Mask of Hidrigum is a very solid order to have, and it's an easy 4 for what it does. Now, it's the only order in this deck. We're not running Best Harvest. The reason why we're not running Best Harvest is because if we were, there'd be a total of 4, 5, 9, 12, 14 at the very least grade 3s, and we are not doing that. So, moving on to one copy of Scarlet Flame Bow General Sturgana. Grade 3, 200%, 13k base, auto and place on rearguard circle. If your Vanguard is Gandiva, Soul Blast 1, bind another rearguard face down, choose opponent's rearguard murder, and then if you do not retire something, draw a card, choose a card from your drop zone, bind it face down. Very solid grade 3 to have, and it's a reason why it's at 1 of, because Bushy chose to nerf it and limit it into the ground because otherwise it'd be too goddamn broken, and I agree, because when I was playing this deck, this thing was the ace grade 3 back when it was at 4 copies. Being able to Soul Blast 1 and bind another rear guard automatically guarantees you 2 binds because A, it gets you a card in drop zone that you can bind via its own skill or Gandiva skill with the Soul Blast, you bind another rear guard, so that's 1 card for Gandiva, then you kill something. If something dies, cool, Gandiva procs, you get a bind with the card you just Soul Blasted. If it doesn't kill something, you draw a card and then you just bind the card you Soul Blasted anyway, so you get 2 binds regardless. Sturgana is just a very powerful grade 3. It does its job amazingly, and there's a reason why it's a 1 of. We're crazy not to run it because it's just good. There's no argument I have for it. And again, the combo I said earlier with Alpha Card to get 6 cards or plus 6k to front row easily during the battle phase, yeah, it's a good combo you're going to want to use. So 1 of in the deck. Moving on to our main grade 3s, 4 copies of Scarlet Flame Ash Dragon Gandiva Mask. So this is the mask form of OG Gandiva. Grade 3 to 13k base. Continues, it can only be written from a grade 3 card with Gandiva in the card name. Auto Vanguard, when your opponent's rear guards are retired during turn, choose a card from your drop zone and you may bind it face down. Then continues Vanguard, during turn, all your front row units get 2000 power for each face down card in your bind zone. So it actually nicked 2 skills straight up from Gandiva. It nicked this one and it nicked this one. The only difference is it doesn't get the extra crit, unfortunately. But the reason why it doesn't do that is act Vanguard once per turn. Remove any Gandiva with a different card name from this unit from your hand, soul, or drop zone to choose one of your original act abilities of the card removed for this cost. Activate without paying the cost, and this unit gets a crit for the turn. So essentially, you get Gandiva's board nuke ability for free, and then you also get to add an extra crit for the turn. Cool, pretty solid. Best part is if Bushy ever does release a new Gandiva that has an act ability, God forbid they do, automatically Gandiva Mask has an extra arrow up its sleeve that it can shoot out at the opponent at will. And then a simple act Vanguard once per turn, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards retire, and if you not retire something, draw a card. I love that ability. I don't think a lot of people like that ability because only a Soul Blast 1 you kill something and you possibly draw out of it. But the thing I like about this the most is that it can at least mostly trigger its own ability. Because say for example you don't have a Gandiva accessible to you, well, you can Soul Blast 1 and kill something on your opponent's board, and you can still get a bind card from it. So all around is pretty solid. The only downside is, unlike every other card that can get a free bind regardless if you kill something or not, this card only gets a draw, but hey, Soul Blast 1 to still draw is pretty solid. All around, Gandiva Mask is a very solid grade 3 to have. It nicks 2 important skills from Gandiva, the power buff effect, which on top of the Persona Ride from Masques of Hidrigum can be really busted, and also not to mention the fact that you can get a free bind card every time you kill something is great as well, but still maintains Gandiva's credibility, literally allows you to pull off Gandiva's ability twice in the same turn for free, your first grade 3 turn if you combine it with Masques of Hidrigum and D panel, and also is a free rear guard kill size draw. So yeah, easy 4 for Mask. Honestly, I like this grade 3 a lot. I think it's super cool, and I think Bushy did a really good job designing this card. And then our last card in the deck, obviously you can't have a masked form of a unit without having the OG form of it. So we have 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the red deck of Scarlet Flame Martial Dragon Gandiva. Grade 3 to 10%, 13k base, auto Vanguard. When your opponent's rear guard is retired during turn, choose one of your cards from your drop zone, you may bind it face down. So these have the same skill as Gandiva Mask over here. And the second ability is continues Vanguard during your turn when all your front row units get plus 2000 power for each face down card in your bind zone. Then if you have 5 or more face down cards in your bind zone, it gets an extra critical. So it has that extra crit guaranteed once you hit 5 or more, which is a little bit more difficult to hit if your opponent damage starves you and then doesn't call rear guards, but being able to be a 23k double crit at all times once you do hit the 5 or more at the very least is pretty solid for pressure. And then act Vanguard once per turn, CB1 for only 1 CB for some reason, and remember this ability is free when you ride it straight from D panel. Choose any number of your opponent's rear guards, or technically you choose as much as physically possible, but choose 5 of your opponent's rear guards with different grades, so grades 0 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is 5 rear guards, by the way. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and then retire all the chosen units with the same grades as any of the revealed cards. Shuffle your deck, and if you retired 1 or less units, draw a card, choose a card from your drop zone, and bind it face down. So pretty much what this means is, say for example, your opponent has 3 rear guards. Well, you pick 3 rear guards, you flip top 5. If all 5, or if there's cards among them that have the same grades, you kill them, and then for each one, you bind a card because of how Gandiva's skill works over here. But if you only bound 1, or if you only killed 1, you're going to get a draw, you're going to get a bind from this effect, and then you're still going to get a bind from this one. So essentially, the only time you're not getting the maximum benefit out of this is if you only kill specifically 2 rear guards, because then you're only going to get 2 binds. You would rather only kill 1 rear guard because then you still get the bind from this skill, but you also get a draw on top of it along with this bind over here, or you just kill 3 or more and you get obviously equal to that amount of cards in bind zone. Either way though, Gandiva is such a good grade 3 because no matter what, you're guaranteed to at least get 1 bind from its skill, and worst case scenario, you're going to also draw along top of that. All around, Gandiva is just a very solid grade 3 to have. It can kill a board in literally 5 seconds flat for only 1 CB, and on the turn you ride it, it's free. It can get a crit and plus God knows how much numbers to the front row incredibly easily, and literally every time something dies, free bind. So all around, Gandiva, very solid grade 3. Amazing for pressure, amazing for rear guard murder, and just great all around for consistency with himself and his deck. So 3 in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck for Sunrise, but also for Masques fodder. And of course, we have our Dragon Tree markers. You only have 4 cards in this deck that can make Dragon Tree markers, and while yes, you will see them very consistently, I have always seen all 4 copies of this every single game. You're not going to use it every single game, but even if you did, you'd only be able to make 4 Dragon Tree markers. So we have 4 Dragon Tree markers. They're markers that go on your circles, cannot be put into the main deck, and during your turn, if your Vanguard's either a Dragon Tree or a Mask unit, all units on the circle with the Dragon Tree marker on it get 5,000 power. Simple as that. And that's it for this one. I hope all of you enjoyed. All around, this deck is genuinely fun to play. You're constantly killing your opponent's rear guards. You're getting numbers out the wazoo. You're getting so much crit pressure out of it, and your opponent pretty much has to deal with it and find a way out around it. And literally the only thing holding you back is the amount of grade 3s you have. All around though, it's a great deck to play, and I definitely recommend you try it out. I'm going to one here. I hope all of you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join us on Twitch, and don't forget to send up your Vanguards.